I tried the first move for 24 hours, here's what happened. Have you noticed how one tiny decision can tilt an entire day? Hit snooze and the hours blur. Put your feet on the floor and suddenly the day has a direction. I wanted to test how far a single idea could carry me. The idea was simple. Every time I felt resistance I would execute a first move so small it was impossible to refuse. No dramatic goals, no perfect routines, just the smallest action that breaks inertia, repeated as many times as the day demanded. The alarm started the experiment. My brain negotiated for 10 more minutes. I did not argue. I let my feet touch the floor. That was the first move. Before excuses could assemble I pulled the sheets tight and made the bed. Second move. I walked to the kitchen and drank a glass of water. Third move. Nothing heroic, but the room already felt different, as if I had taken the steering wheel of the morning. At the table I opened a notebook and wrote one line. Today I move first before fear speaks. Not a manifesto, not a 5-page plan. One sentence was enough to anchor the day. Then I stepped outside for 2 minutes of air, to the end of the street and back. I did not call it a workout. I called it momentum. A project had been haunting me for days. The cursor blinked like a dare. I lowered the bar to absurdly easy and typed one ugly sentence. It did not need to be clever, it only needed to exist. One sentence became three. Three became a paragraph. 30 minutes later I was still typing. I remembered something we forget too easily. Motivation follows motion, not the other way around. A different kind of resistance waited on my phone. A call I had delayed for weeks. I did not write a script. I did not rehearse. I let my thumb dial and allowed the ring to happen. That was the move. 6 minutes later the conversation ended. Not perfect, not cinematic, but a mental loop closed and the quiet after it felt like recovering bandwidth I did not know I had lost. Lunchtime arrived with the usual tug of convenience. I did not declare a diet or a new identity. I placed an apple on the counter before opening any delivery app. The environment cast the vote for me. One plate, real food, stop at 80% full. Design beats discipline when willpower is tired. The afternoon slump rolled in, heavy and familiar. I set a 2-minute timer, stood up, and stretched. When the timer ended I worked standing for 10 minutes. The slump did not vanish, but it shortened. Sometimes the win is not eliminating friction, but reducing its half-life. Money is emotional, which is why small moves matter. I transferred 1 unit of currency to savings and cancelled one tiny expense I had been ignoring. Then I set an automatic transfer for tomorrow so the habit would not depend on future enthusiasm. Discipline is easier when the default is doing the right thing. I sent a single message to someone I care about. Thinking of you, how are you? No networking agenda, no strategy, just care in a sentence. A short call followed and the day felt bigger than my to-do list. Success means little if you cross the finish line alone. Movement returned as the sun started to fall. I did not promise an hour at the gym. I put on my shoes. That was enough to pull me outside. 15 minutes of walking loosened the knots in my back and the knots in my mind. Personal bests are nice, personal choices are better. I watched the light change. Nothing profound happened and yet something did. The sun did not argue with the clouds. It just kept rising and falling on schedule. Maybe the first move is simply that inner sunrise we choose to trigger again and again. I wanted to learn something new, but vague goals create vague effort. Read 1 page. That was the move. 1 page became 6 in a small note I could apply tomorrow. Information is not power until it becomes action. Before night I created a digital sunset. Do not disturb on. Phone face down. 20 minutes without screens. The silence felt awkward for a moment and then it felt like oxygen. I wrote 1 line for tomorrow when in doubt. Move first. I set a trap for morning success. Clothes ready by the chair, water bottle filled, desk clear. People think willpower is the engine. Most days design is the engine and willpower is just the ignition key. Before sleep I wrote 3 wins from the day. I made the call, I moved my body, I kept the promise to start. Small wins do not have to be loud to be real. Morning returned and with it an honest reflection. What did 24 hours of first moves actually change? I did not reinvent my life. I did not become a different person overnight. I did not check every box. What changed was the tone of the day. Friction was lower. I felt less dragged by events and more like I was directing them. Tiny actions stacked into a narrative of progress. The difference between drifting and steering was never a giant leap, just repeated starts. Here are the clearest lessons from the experiment. The brain obeys motion. Do not wait to feel ready to act, and the feeling will follow. Design the start. Not the whole journey. Shoes by the door, water on the desk, one line in the journal make the start so easy it is hard not to begin. Tiny choices compound. An apple before the app, one message to someone you love, one page before bed. Small wins become a chain, and chains become character. If you want to try this yourself, make it simple for the next 24 hours. Every time your mind says later, execute a 2-minute first move. When you feel stuck, change the environment before you try to change your mood at night. Record 3 wins. No matter how small, you do not need a new life, you need a new start. Repeated. If this resonated, subscribe and stay with me here each week. Together we will keep testing small practical moves that create real change without the hype. Success does not come to those who wait, it comes to those who move first.